talked to a few people in the New York Fed. I think there's a little bit of denial still. There's a hope. But again, I think with the move we saw in Besant now, dual titled, it's all but locked. So there is a worry that the credibility of the institution, which affects every employee there, and they all take very seriously, especially the lifetimers who've been there multi-decade and been there since the financial crisis, where a lot of people really earned some chops. And when I was there, are worried that this will affect the ability to actually transmit monetary policy effectively.
So how does that happen? So if we get a new Fed chairman, how does that impact like the New York Fed and other banks around the country realistically?
Again, as you've all covered and we all know, it is a committee, so there is some guardrails. We obviously know the regional presidents are supposed to be isolated and see their own regions and their own interests there. But overall, it is a team effort, and obviously New York Fed is the conduit which faces the market and where the market operations are. So they have to do as the board beckons in a lot of ways, and there isn't any kind of independence in that sense.
So what do we expect from, I guess, next Wednesday, when the Fed does? What are you looking for? What do you think most Fed watchers are looking for?
I think Powell's going to make the case. I think, funny enough, the pain trade is more of a dovish outcome than expected. Everyone right now is looking for that hawkish cut, and then clearly a transition period into next year when we get new leadership. And right now, funny enough, it looks like Powell still may stay on. So the amount of seats that Trump will effectively be able to change may only be one. Lisa Cook looks pretty secure. She's obviously undergoing this legal battle, and we're not clear where that's going to end up. But Myron is already a dovish vote. He's going to be replaced with another dovish vote. Hassett will have to get somewhere in June in front of that meeting and make his case for a more aggressive path.
But I need some theater here. Can the governors and presidents, with two separate mandates, two separate qualities or feelings in their chair around that table, can they, simplistically, can they rebel against any given Trump chairman?
Yeah, I think so. And I think this is an interesting point that's been brought up recently. And I think we saw this from Darius Perkin. I think he's at TS Lombard, and making the case that Powell's been encouraging dissent to prepare the committee for this move. So we've never seen quite this rabble.
Let's be careful. That's an opinion. Not
that is
reporting.
An opinion. That is also something I'm echoing in my opinion. So let's be clear. You're right.
But it's not reporting per se.
No. But it's an idea that's circulating traders and PMs that I've heard now. And it's effectively saying that Powell sees this political fight coming, this sort of independence worry growing, and he's encouraging governors and individual Fed presidents from the regional banks to take up their own opinions and have more debate and to push back on the leadership so that it's not all just what the chairman says.
When Fed Chair Jay Powell does step down, typically when chairs step down, they leave the Fed, historically. You think he may stay?
He loves the institution. He's really committed to the not only goal of the dual mandates and effectively finding the right policy path that gives the right balance to the economy, but I think he has a deep pride in the institution and he wants it to be in safe hands. And I guess maybe in some rebellious way would probably stay on. I don't know. That's also an opinion, to be clear.
Right. So, but I mean, that would be a challenge for the new Fed chair to have and that doesn't happen typically.
It would be interesting because everyone's talking about the shadow chair, and it would be the opposite of that post-June.
Okay, Ruth Carson writes up, Greg Peters is wonderful over at PGIM, saying market doubts Hassett. Quickly here, we've got to get you back, Michael Ball. But quickly here, in Japan, farther out the curve, the bond vigilantes have spoken. Is there a possibility in America, farther out the curve, we will see the forward or futures market guess lower prices, higher yields?
Yeah, I think a term premium's coming. I think there's a number of ways to look at that. I think obviously Fed independence, which we've covered well here, is a concern, but also there's a ton of supply. Corporate supply, Treasury supply, this AI supply that keeps growing every day. It's going to crowd out. We have other supply elsewhere. We're seeing this already in Japan affecting global rates coming across the globe on the daily basis. So here we go. I mean, it just seems like it's unless we have a recession, unless we have a real downturn, it's hard to make that safe haven bid with this term premium need.